Two of my pals and I, all three of us were 10 years of age, were sitting on a log which was to us a Lancaster bomber. Although we'd never actually seen a Lancaster bomber, we'd seen Hurricanes and Spitfires and Tiger Moths, but never a bomber, and especially an American bomber. We knew what Lancasters were, so to us this was a Lancaster. It was a few seconds after we were sitting there that we heard this noise approaching us from the east, and it passed overhead at tree height. But what caught my sight mainly, I couldn't even tell you if the engines were working, but I can tell you for a certain fact that from the fuselage side of the wing there was an hole, and through that was pouring flames, which were going right back along the fuselage onto the tailplane. It passed out of our sight then, and we followed it with our eyes as long as we could, and then we started to chase after it, but we soon lost sight of it because we had a long way to go. We got across perhaps 1.5 field, and then we heard this tremendous bang in the distance. A terrific bang, we'd never felt anything like it. The ground shuddered quite badly, and then we've seen this huge ball of flame go up and a huge amount of smoke. Then we were still running towards it, and there was nobody about as far as we could see, because in them days, if the farmers seen you, they'd have no compunction about using a whip on you. But we'd heard a tremendous crack long before the plane actually blew up in the distance. And when we got closer, the top had gone off a tree. And we'd not gone more than 100 yards, then the man who'd been chasing us, he could have been a poacher, he could have been a farmer, he could have been anybody. But he got a double barrel gun with him, and us lads in them days, you wouldn't stand about.
I was 9 years old when I heard about the crash at Nailstone. I got the information from other kids at school, and at that time I was quite interested in aeroplanes, and I desperately wanted to come up and have a look at the crash site. My parents were dead against me coming up to Nailstone to look at this aeroplane. But anyway, I decided to go, and it must have been in the evening after school. I came up to Nailstone, and I stood on the top of the hill near the council dumps. That's coming up from Ibstock. The council dump is on the left-hand side, and the crash site was on the right-hand side. And what I can remember is I can see the aeroplane lying on the ground. I could not see the extent of the damage, but I could make out the aeroplane. But we weren't allowed to get anywhere near it. It was guarded by either policemen or soldiers, but I could make out the shape of the aeroplane. After the event, people had collected bits of perspex, and they used to make rings for the fingers from this perspex. Also, another thing I can remember is my dad had a fella that used to work in his office, and he'd collected, I'm assuming they were 20 millimeter Browning bullets, and he would prise the bullet end out of the shell casing, put the shell casing into a vise in my dad's workshop, hit the firing cap with a 6-inch nail and cause a minor explosion. I later learned that the American B-17G Flying Fortress bomber, named Heavenly Body, had crashed with the whole crew losing their lives.
The bomber was travelling from RAFI in Suffolk. When the plane got into trouble, it seems that they were trying to land at RAF Desford, which served as a satellite airfield during the war.
On board were 12 American aircrew on a routine night navigation exercise. The Michael Primus crew had already completed many bombing missions in the B-24 Liberator when they were transferred to the new B-17G.
Normally there would be a crew of 9, but there were 3 extra officers on board that night to get the extra flying hours.
The cause of the accident will never be known. Eyewitness reports state that the plane seemed to get into trouble with a possible engine fire whilst over Desford. It was spotted descending over Bagworth and Bartley in the Beans, finally nosediving into a field on the Ibstock Road near Nailstone.
It seems to me that the pilot, Michael Primus, knew that he was trying to get that aircraft from causing countless deaths in our village. I can see him struggling with the controls even to this day. He and his crew deserved the highest commendation that their country can offer. They were all really true heroes.
I believe the crew of this aeroplane performed quite a miracle by avoiding the village of Nailstone and giving up their lives to save people, possibly in the village of Nailstone and also Balston. I believe that they were quite a true inspiration.
3 coal miners cycling home from their shift were first on the scene, but could not help. They stayed until the fire brigade and home guard arrived. There was nothing that could have been done to save the men.
An investigation took place immediately. However, there has never been a conclusion to the cause. Majority of the plane parts was discovered and removed soon after the crash. However, a 20mm Browning gun and the 4th engine, still in pristine condition after being preserved in oil and mud, were found 50 years later and donated to Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage. Same cannot be said about the crew. The aircraft had a full load of bombs which all exploded on impact. The crash was devastating, leaving many victim bodies unidentifiable. Some have been buried in their hometowns, but some have never been recovered. Their graves remain empty. In 2002, there was a memorial held in Nailstone in the honour of the 490th American Bomb Group.
We dedicate this memorial to the glory of God in deep and lasting memory of those 12 men.
England, September the 27th, 1944. Dearest Mom and all, well, Mom, I'll try and drop you a few lines to let you know I'm still well and happy. I just got back from town and I saw some swell movie shows. They were Two Girls and a Sailor, The Singing Musketeers, also The Eve of St. Mark. I haven't heard from Harold for several days, but I flew over his base the other day, and it was still there, so I imagine he is okay. So you think Mary is going to try and run me straight to a preacher, do you? I hate to disappoint her, but she may as well get that idea out of her head, because the war is going to be completely over, and I'm going to have a good job before I ever get hitched. So when I come home, I'll still belong to my darling mother and dad. So don't worry. The boys are all swell, and most of them are writing letters at present. The weather's getting sort of like winter, and it makes me sort of homesick to go coyote hunting. And I suppose they are quite abundant this fall, aren't they? Well, Mom, there isn't a thing to write about. So I'll say so long for now. Worlds of love, Roy E.G.